Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome Bharat Desai. He's an internal medicine and pulmonary physician. Today's Kevin MD article is How Acthar Gel Became a $250,000 Drug. Bharat, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin, for inviting me. And I'm really grateful for a chance to share a few perspectives that I think medicine badly needs right now. The article, even though it's a cost related, it has a lot of deep meaning.
Yeah, so why don't we talk about the article?
Okay.
It's How Acthar Gel Became a
Okay.
$250,000 Drug. Just before you talk about the article, give
Sure.
us some context. Tell us what Acthar Gel is and
Okay.
how's it
All right.
used for today and why is it relevant?
So Acthar Gel is, everybody knows, it's an adrenocortical stimulating hormone, like ACTH, which is a old hormone. It was in 1950 discovered, and it was used. It was a crude pituitary extract, right? And then it basically stimulates your adrenal gland to produce more steroids.
Yeah.
So when in 80s, when the synthetic steroids arrived, this drug was almost dead. There was no market or nothing, right? Because why would they use ACTH if you have steroids?
Yeah.
So then what happened is the company who had that original patent, they could still use it, some FDA loophole, and they sold that for 100,000 to some California biotech, and they labeled it as biologic. And with the biologic, you can charge whatever you want. There's no competition. So now it's the same old drug. There's no difference. It's called Acthar Gel, but it's basically ACTH it's an injectable form. And multiple sclerosis and sometimes nephrotic syndrome or rheumatologists use it, basically steroid sparing or whatever you want to call it. But really, it's absurd that this medication should cost $10 of now it's cost $250,000 and still being used, and then company filed bankruptcy for few times because of all this bribes and all those things. But still, in spite of two bankruptcies, they are still alive and they are charging this much money.
All right. So your article talks about the story of that, how Acthar
Yes.
Gel became a $250,000 drug. So how did it get from there to where we are today?
So all they do is once they just use that original loophole that it is still indicated, and then they just got some key opinion leaders, and they started just spreading the word, and people are using it. And it's not, still many physicians are not aware of it, even the cost.
Now, you mentioned that it's being used in conditions like multiple sclerosis.
Right.
How common is this drug being used today?
It's not that common, but as you see, multiple sclerosis, and also it is used on rheumatoid conditions, right? Any inflammatory autoimmune disease. Basically, if patient does not want to take steroids, or if they have a side effects or something, this is kind of, they give you like a steroid substitute, really. And it's not even substitute, because all it does is going to increase the steroids. That's how it works.
Sure.
So.
And how did this story get your attention? Why did you decide to write about it?
Okay, so what happened was we have where I can even see the cost. So one of my CEO called me, "Doc, do you know this doctor?" I said, "Why?" He wrote this prescription which cost $250,000. I thought, you must be mistaken. It cannot be that. It must, unless it's like a life-saving one in a million.
Yeah.
And then she told me Acthar Gel, and I looked ACTH, and it blew my mind that this is absurdity, and how can this happen? So then I dug deeper and deeper, and worse it looked. It wasn't just the corporate greed, but it was really corruption dressed as a science and woven into the culture of medicine. So it's how these few key opinion leaders got bought, and then everybody else followed. And the theme of my article, as you can see, if you see, there were only two sentences, is distilled into: the shepherds were bought and the flocks followed them into the ditch. So basically, we all, as a physician, herd mentality, we never really questions. And this is just one example. It happens many different occasions, and I have found that.
Now, despite the loophole that this particular biotech company did to raise the price of Acthar Gel, did they do anything illegal according to the letter of the law?
No, they didn't do anything illegal. No,
But
absolutely.
morally, they took a drug that you
Yes,
said cost $10 and charged
yes, yes,
$250,000.
exactly.
Now, what does that mean for the patients who need this drug? Like, is this talk about the impact that cost increase would have both on payers and on patients? Let's tell us some of the
Yes,
practical impacts.
it's really a big problem because nobody can, it's, I think Medicaid is paying so much money, so a lot of the Medicaid budget is being drained into this. And I don't know how, I don't have personal experience of this using drugs, so I can't tell you about that. But basically, it's use it's it doesn't have any specific indication and still being used, and people are writing the prescription. So that's the sad part, that physicians without understanding or knowing are writing the prescription. So that was my theme of my article, that corporations are going to make money, this their business, and they have to, they did legal, they did something, couple of things illegal, and like they bought out only competition, synthetic competition, ACTH. So it was like, what do you call it, when you control the market, there was illegal,
Monopoly.
yeah, monopoly. And they paid fees for that too, and still still going on.
Now, when you said that this company recruited key opinion leaders in their efforts to monopolize this drug, do you know the story behind that? Do you know some of the doctors that they
No, I
recruited?
mean,
Because you did mention the word corruption. So tell me how that was corrupt.
so so what happens is, many times, let's say the neurology, right, that was the main market. So they had few like elite school neurologists or whatever, they give them the research money or grant money or whatever, and then they produce what you call CME, or they talking, like talking fees,
Yeah.
and they talk and they go to the conferences, and that's how. And it happens with all the pharmaceuticals, right? Because we physicians don't have a lot of time to investigate, so we follow the leaders, and all they have to do is, few leaders they just bought out or whatever we want to call it. And
In your
that's,
article, you use
yes,
the term intellectual surrender, right? When it
right.
comes to the doctors who prescribe this drug. So tell us more about why you've labeled them or labeled that prescribing as intellectual surrender.
So basically, when we prescribe, and that is very, very common, right? When we prescribe drugs without really truly understanding, not only the cost wise, but the mechanism, the side effects and stuff, what we do, as because of the lack of time or whatever the system is, all we depend on the pharmaceutical company rep, come on, give a little couple of 10 minutes thing, and they give you a
Hmm.
couple of studies. Or you go to CME, and there is also, it's financed by the companies, right? And so intellectual, because we never really question, okay, hey, this should not be there. And that's what I meant. And that is one example. And there are a lot of other osteoporosis. I have wrote an article about those drugs. And also the dangers and the benefits and stuff. It's either we don't question because of whatever reason, or we don't have time or expertise or whatever. So that's what I meant by intellectual surrender. That's a big problem with the current medicine.
So I have to admit, even as an internal medicine physician, it's been a while since I've studied Acthar
Right.
Gel. Are there
Right.
really no substitutes for Acthar Gel for the conditions it treats?
No, all you do is give Solumedrol, and that will do the same thing.
Then why do doctors continue to prescribe Acthar Gel if
That,
there's
that,
such a
that,
cheap alternative?
that's what my question was. Because they've been told, oh, this is supposed to be more biological, or supposed to be, what do you call, it's to spare the steroids, you don't get side effects. So what I'm telling you, this is what they are telling, and people are believing, the physicians, and that's what I meant, right? As soon as my CEO told me ACTH, and first thing I said, even the neurologist friend I call, I said, what about this? Oh yeah, use just Solumedrol and you will do the same thing.
Do we have an idea of the sales of Acthar Gel today and about how
I
many prescriptions still
no,
prescribe this drug?
no, I didn't get into all those other details, but I don't think it's prescribed that much, because the indications are only like for multiple neurologists and rheumatologists and nephrotic syndrome, but I don't know whether any nephrologist prescribes or not. But
So I know.
rheumatologist does. And rheumatology, one of my colleague friend, he told me after I talked to him about this, he says, all these drug guys they keep pushing me to prescribe this, for whatever the rheumatologist. So I said, don't do that. So means this is going on.
So that rheumatologist friend that you said, he's still having pharmaceutical representatives come to his office and pushing
Exactly. Yeah.
Acthar Gel, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They say, oh, why don't you write it? Why don't it doesn't? And what they will never tell you the cost. The neurologist who had prescribed, he's a friend of mine. So I called him, hey, he prescribes this. Do you know how much it costs? He says, no, I thought it should be cheaper because it's old generic. I told him 250,000. He could not believe it. He said that drug rep never would tell. And he's always, they never will say, it will say, oh, zero copay, $20 copay. They'll never say the cost.
Now, does this happen with other drugs? I think in the primary care setting,
Yes.
I know that there are other drugs where
Yes.
pharmaceutical companies will take the patent of expiring or old drugs, and then they would be the only one that could be able to produce that medication.
I haven't looked into all the other drugs details, but this one, because it was such a old, there were laws that they did not conduct any trial, not a single trial before they just labeled this Acthar Gel as a patented. All they did it was few other case studies, and they just used that original. They used to do it FDA. Once a indication is approved, it was in the goals set in stone, but not anymore. But it used to be like that.
Now, did the third-party payers and Medicare and Medicaid, do they cover this drug or did they push
They
back after the cost?
So this is what happens. So I say, how come Medicare? So they are bound. So this problem, the Medicare is bound by if it is approved, and if the physician writes an indication, then they have to pay for it. And some of the private might complain, but it's difficult because then they have a liability, right? And then they have a legal problem. So that's what exactly I ask. I say, how come insurance company? But they are bound by it. They cannot even bargain because Medicare cannot even bargain for the drugs, cost.
So what's the answer here? What do you propose in order to prevent something like this from happening again in the future?
So the best thing is, and the most as physician, as we are responsible. So those leaders who were bought by it and who tried to persuade this, they should be not pay, they should be held accountable. And second, we cannot just take whatever somebody tells and go for. We have to do our own. We have to claim that sovereignty or claim our power of signature. That see this, the drug company can charge $1 million, but without physician signature, this medication will be dead, right? So my really take home message and philosophy is nothing in medicine moves without physician's signature. So it's a sacred signature. It should reflect judgment, conscience, responsibility, and not just obedience or compliance.
We're
And
talking
I
to,
think we have forgotten that power of our signature.
we're talking to Bharat Desai, internal medicine and pulmonary physician. Today's Kevin MD article is How Acthar Gel Became a $250,000 Drug. Bharat, you gave us some take-home messages earlier. Anything you want to add before we close?
So, as I said, critical thinking, I think, is very, very important. Another thing which I have noticed in modern medicine, that we have to return to physiology and pathophysiology and understand the real mechanism behind all this drug. I know it takes time, but we need to, because otherwise there are a lot of misguided and misconceptions and dogmas in medicine. And I'm going to be writing, and I'm doing a lot of presentations and doing it. And I think it's about time we need to challenge some of this mainstream dogma, no matter how widespread it is. We have to stand up and claim.
Bharat, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and insight. And thanks again for coming on the show.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.